Hi everyone. First of all, I thank you CS Sri Lanka for organizing this particular webinar on linking pre-seen to unseen at strategic level. It's my great pleasure to take this opportunity and share my views and ideas, especially from a pedagogical point of view, how best candidates would be able to link this information in such a manner to develop good and relevant answers. So I am a fellow member of CS Sri Lanka and currently working at University of Sri Jayewardenepura. And then quickly I'll go to the outline of today's discussion. Use of cognitive domains is something that we are going to talk about the prerequisites to tackle this particular issue, not only for this particular subject or the strategic level, and the use of cognitive domains are paramount important when we answer to any questions or any examinations to great extent. Then we will look at the overview of the common pre-seen, then how until it goes to unseen, and the nature of common pre-seen and the nature and structure of unseen, focus areas and strategies for analyzing and answering the questions. The use of cognitive domains, why are they so important? We know that learning involves especially a professional like gaining a professional qualification. It's applicable for any learning, any education matters. We gain knowledge, we gain skills, attitudes. Likewise, if you have adequate, comprehensive, relevant knowledge only, you would be able to perform as a professional. Otherwise, you would not be able to fulfill or deliver your duties, and you would not be able to keep up to moral obligations and all those things. So whereby these cognitive domains are very, very important. Nowadays, in the recent past, McKinsey has done a research which has identified there are 56 different types of skills. I'm not going to talk about all. I'm going to talk about little bit skills coming within these cognitive domains, which are really useful for analyzing a given facts in the form of case or pre-seen and linking it to unseen and developing a kind of solutions instead of just simply reproducing given facts. So the learning is improving nowadays. Again, it has been proven to great extent. The areas where students learn much is the problem solving, critical thinking, phase into given facts. So in our learning domains, we call these things as case studies or any other type of information, something like storytelling narratives, instead of just simply asking definitions. So at this level, especially strategic level, what really matters is this analytical thinking, presenting something, I mean, your knowledge, skills, and attitudes to real applications. This is what we try to do to a possible extent. So critical thinking domain within the cognitive domain covers structured problem solving. In your examination, strategic level, actually to some extent, questions are structured, not that much open. Therefore, this critical thinking is important. Logical reasoning really matters. We have observed in answer scripts, sometimes students provide lots of information, theories, knowledge, sometimes overload of information, but we do not see logical reasoning and flow of argument, then it would not be considered as a good solution. It is not a good decision because you are going to take decisions for real life problems in organization. So logical reasoning, in other words, we call justification matters. Understanding the biases. So what does it mean? Understanding the biases mean um, in now learning, it's very hard for us to say that there are things or independent which are independent. Actually, things are biased, but we do not know they are biased, right? So they are subjective to some extent. It doesn't mean that that's bad. That is the reality. But if you do not understand that biasness, subjectivity, and think that it is unbiased, highly objective, then we take decision thinking that that is objective, it would be a fallacy, because we take decision thinking that that is unbiased and independent, but it's not true. No, I mean, it's not really true. So biasness may be from managerial perspective, particular subject perspective. For example, when we take CS Sri Lanka, most of the decisions and information are pertaining to their professional path and all those things. So therefore, that biasness is there. But we need to understand that is there. So even in a case, so biasness is there. You need to understand it. The seeking relevant information, another area. In your, I'll just link to our scope as well instead of simply explaining what they are. Um, in the information provided in the pre-scene are relevant. All are relevant. Sometimes, if you want, you can collect additional information as well. But it does not mean that even though such information is relevant, 100% relevant, it doesn't mean that you have to make use all this relevant information when you develop your answers by connecting such information to unseen. So that's important. So the relevance comes in terms of decision making, in terms of giving solutions. It doesn't mean that because for the namesake, as they were given in pre-scene, that information is there, therefore we need to use it. No, that is a fallacy, trap. Uh, so we have seen in answering, I mean, answers developed by students, they try to decorate their answers with unnecessary information or all the information or additional information which has no relevance. Therefore, it's not critical. It is not critical. Critical thinking is we give only relevant information. Then planning and ways of workings. Work plan development. So in this case, like pertaining to pre-seen and unseen, you have to develop a kind of work plan because this common pre-scene is given pertaining to 4 specific subject areas. Then the plan should be accordingly. We must be able to later be discussing these things. The information given in the pre-scene, of course, are interrelated, interdependent to one particular case or a particular industry, company, whatever it is. So interdependent, but at the same time, it explains and it unfolds information pertaining to mainly 4 areas. Later, we discuss all these things. So therefore, you have to have a plan, the sketch of categorizing, grouping, and linking information even within the pre-scene, right? Now still this work plan, because you cannot have a work plan development referring to unseen until you go to the examination. So prior to the examination, you have to have a plan. Even at the examination, then also you have to have a plan. I'll talk about that plan later on. Nevertheless, work plan development is important. The time management and prioritization. Of course, needless to say about this thing. Everyone utters about the time management. It's extremely difficult, very hard task, but no option, you need to manage. So the management, the success of the management comes as a result of your quickness, your agility, your prompt action. So that's the only way of managing the time. So then therefore you can prioritize the things. um, Last week I saw a particular video clip about readings. One of the scholars give a very nice briefing about readings, and his idea is stop reading. Stop reading, then you may know, wonder, oh, so I mean, is it so going to discourage us from reading? No, it's not a discourage of reading. Stop reading means, so you need to prioritize reading. You need to identify what you have to read, because in this world nowadays, especially due to development of technology, science, and economic, politics, so many things, the plethora of information. To great extent, his argument is that this information is irrelevant, and not only irrelevant, sometimes destructive, that might bring you to a kind of destructive ideologies. It's really bad. So you can search these things internet and see whether reading is good. So what I just want to highlight there is prioritization is important, because you can't, even if all the issues given in pre-scene are important, during the examination time, it is extremely difficult to come out with all those things. Therefore, don't be prepared to give a perfect answer. Perfectionism is another fallacy, another trap. If you try to give a perfect answer, even in your daily life or practical situation when you work in an organization, it's lost no way. Therefore, if it is not possible in real life, so it is not possible at the examination. Prioritize. The prioritization would help you. We will discuss with your agile thinking, the quick thinking. That's what just they are, even though we discuss about these things, they are interconnected. Quick thinking, rational thinking, ability to learn. So ability to learn is something connected your openness. And if you can be free from um, predetermined, prejudged beliefs, then your ability to learn improves. If you have many things already prejudged, predetermined, and beliefs, emotions, and all those things, if you have just filled your brain and the thinking domain with all those things, then you don't have a very big ability to learn. Learning always refreshes with new information and not with simple dogmatic beliefs. Actually, beliefs are important. Beliefs should be supported, justified with rational information. That's how you build. So you do certain exercises, work, practice, and study hard. So therefore, the belief comes, okay, if you work hard, then there is a way of just gaining knowledge. That belief is not bad. But if you simply believe in something, okay, if you just go to the examination by praying to someone, maybe God, or just some mythical belief, so it's not a proper way of learning. Then the communication also matters. What is meant by communication here in pertaining to your examination is whether you deliver your answers in the answer script given time period. That is the ability. Don't think too much about the grammar, because this is not um, English or any other language test. So we are testing some other competencies and skill. So communicate your idea, right? So the communication in general, as far as your case is like unseen and pre-seen is concerned, that is the way. Generally, it is said that in day-to-day life, success depends to great extent whether you can communicate. Storytelling and public speaking, how best you can convince others. So this is also like, to some extent, I do not know up to what extent I will be successful. And this is also a kind of communication. So storytelling. So putting facts and information in such a manner, thinking that that would help you to develop answers. So that's a kind of communication. It matters. That is why this session has been organized. Otherwise, we can CA can ask, okay, so material is there, you better prepare and ready for the examination. But CA has experience. So by looking at your answer scripts, there are some deviations. So weaknesses in the communication. So therefore, it matters. Asking the right questions. So as far as you are concerned, let's come to that point. Actually, you are not asking the right question in this case. That is a skill you need to develop. But as far as your examination is concerned, actually, you are responding to the asked questions, right? Then synthesizing messages. That is also very, very important. There are so many things together. So information overload is there. Synthesize. For example, here there are in the pre-scene, lots of information may be given. The last pre-scene I have seen that there are 20 pages, 20 pages. Lots of information, lots of aspects, lots of dimensions, theme, sub-themes, issues likewise. But one thing is known to us, they are discussed, sometimes they may just go outside the scope within 4 major areas of your strategic level subjects. Got it? Because unseen are different in each subject. You have different unseen and questions, but the pre-seen is a common one for all those subjects. So your synthesization therefore for these areas: reporting, taxation, financial management, and strategic management. Active listening is a general thing, so there is no direct link to this course. Mental flexibility, creativity, and imagination, that also matters and helps in the answering to this case. And translating knowledge to a different context, that also has a practical relevance, but in answering to pre-seen, unseen, so that is not that much useful. Then adopting a different perspective. Well, actually, this matters especially when it comes to strategic management part. Because strategic management part, there is no hard and fast rule in business management nowadays that this is the way, this is the only way. The concept is gone. Why? The business I mean, dimensions and the dynamics are quickly changing, and they are altered by practices, by learning, and the political turmoil, changes, social issues. Like there are so many things, and to great extent, the technology as well. Quickly, things are being altered. Then if you think from only from a one particular perspective, that idea may or may not work. Even if it works, it has a limited reference, limited use. So multiple approach, triangulation, looking at a particular issue from different points will help you to understand and see the different aspect of the issue. Otherwise, you look at only your side of the story, your thinking of the story. That is a belief. That is a danger. That's a danger. Then the adaptability. So that means whatever the theory, knowledge that you have gained throughout these 4 courses, or maybe from outside, and you must be able to use and link to given issues. So pre-seen and unseen is such a situation. We are testing your adaptability of using your knowledge, competencies with these cases. I hope it's clear that you can learn a lot more about these things. Lots of information is there. Now, overview, then specifically coming to your the subject matter, it is a pre-scene, it's a common pre-scene which is given in advance, probably 1 month in advance. Then you have relatively longer time period. 1 month if you read, so it's a quite longer period. So therefore, you tend to read it Actually, it is advisable to read as much as possible, at least 3, 4 times or 5 times. It's all right, nothing harm of reading, but you um, start to live with the Preseen relatively long period of time. That is, I just told you. You have to understand it very carefully, otherwise you might take me wrong. On one hand, you have to read it as much as possible, but on the other hand, you need to um, keep it in a separate basket, like away from your logical reasoning domain. I'll explain you later on why. So, since we live with something for a quite longer period of time, that is going to embed in you. Once it is embedded, it's, I mean, deeper from psychological analysis, once something is embedded in your mind, what triggers whenever you see a similar kind of thing in the unseen, that the things would quickly come without relating to the particular questions asked. I'll explain that one later. But anyway, this is the nature you have to understand. Imagination about the unseen based on the preseen. Then since you read it, you live with this, therefore you automatically, if you can't, it's all right. Imagination, forecast, different perception about unseen. You may try to imagine or figure out what the unseen would be. It's all right. So that is another. Then the preparedness for questions in the unseen. Then sometimes we would try, if you can forecast or predict what would be in the unseen, you can be prepared. Even for questions, so tentative questions, draft questions, so these are the possible questions that would come. It's all right. But danger, I will explain you the danger later on. The risk of deviation of your imagination from the real unseen given at the examination. So that is the risk. Up to now, you live it, you forecast, you prepare for questions. Then how are you going to face, how are you going to tackle the issue when you really see the unseen at the examination, right? There would be generally two probabilities. One is, yes, unseen is somewhat similar or within a frame that you thought prior to the examination. That's one. Then you should be happy in case. But the other one is a totally different one. You imagine something, but in the unseen, you get totally different. If you are not having very good cognitive domains, critical thinking, then you would be panicked. You shouldn't be like this, no matter. So the idea here is what I just told you. There the possibilities, it would be in line with your thinking, it would be outside of your thinking. No matter whether it is in line of your thinking or outside of thinking, better be confident. Even if you are overconfident thinking that yes, unseen is in line of my thought and this is I imagine, I have already prepared, of course mind that there is a greater risk of producing something that was not asked. That would be on your own, not the question, because we are so comfortable, you are fascinated with the unseen, you think that it is easy game, you start writing all these rubbish unnecessary things. So in a way, if the unseen is not within your imagination, it is good, like tension, but just being panic is not good. Be confident, you read it. So these are two aspects in the overview. The other thing is the pedagogical connection. Pedagogical connection between preseen and unseen. What is this pedagogical connection? We so like you have lots of experience about learning and other subjects. Of course, you're like here limitations are there in your learning process. They are included in the pedagogical domain in specific subjects. There are 4 subjects, and the pedagogical aspects and the learning outcomes are included in those separate subjects. Therefore, there is a very, very little chance that the unseen would come outside of the intended learning outcomes of your specific course unit. Here there are 4 courses: reporting, taxation, financial management, and strategic management. Then what are the specific learning outcomes? Then you are supposed to think that no matter whether it is pre-seen, unseen, in the process of connecting both, of course, there is a very, very little chance. You can think that there is no chance of having something outside these learning outcomes. So very little chances with respect to the program outcome, because this is a CA Sri Lanka. A strategic level, you are learning something which is unique to that particular level. Therefore, the learning objectives are there, but those pre-seen, unseen may link to some learning objectives of the entire program, that is CA Sri Lanka. Some of the things which you have already learned in the early stages may be again tested here. So therefore, you better pay attention on the overall objective of CA Sri Lanka, this particular course, specifically the learning objectives of these 4 subjects. This is the connection. Don't try to, you can learn, but for the examination purposes, don't try to think beyond outside these objectives. That is a good preparation. Then we will move on to the nature and the structure of common pre-seen. Of course, the information provided in the pre-seen is about a particular industry or industries combination, because nowadays you know that in terms of risk management, it is hard is seen a particular company operating in one industry or doing one particular business or engaging with one single product. So diversification matters to minimize the risk. As a result, they cross among industries and engage in business activities and do lots of things. So therefore, that is the nature of this case. But there may be sometimes so specific focus may have been given, so no matter, but you know the boundary, it can go to several industries, a specific context, a Sri Lankan context, or maybe foreign context or combination. But finally, the information is given about a particular entity or a group of companies, but that is an entity. Even that's a group or an individual company, that is this. Because when we learn about management, accounting, auditing, finance, and all those things, we learn our what we call the base. The learning base is an entity. We learn about entities, corporations to a great extent. So that is the most formal and organized way of carrying out economic activities. If you want, you can carry out your economic activities individually as a partnership and likewise, but the most powerful, well-established way of carrying out or engaging in economic activities is a limited liability company. So therefore, limited liability company can grow from a private company to a multinational company, ultranational company, cartel, like as we see very big giant corporations in the world like Amazon, Google, so many IT companies, Microsoft. So likewise. Then the consequences would be either positive, negative, because the corporations are like double-edged swords. Sometimes there are some criticisms about corporations as well, because of corporations, only a handful of people can legitimately accumulate huge wealth in their possession at the expense of large number of thousands and millions individuals expense. They contribute to great extent, but finally only a handful of shareholders, managers, and so on get lots of wealth. So that is one of the criticism, but that is within a market economy. But you have to understand that fact as well. It is about an entity, but the nature of this entity, mainly we focus about a limited liability company. So scope and the capacity of limited liability company is immense. There is no end in terms of power, in terms of wealth, in terms of the longevity time. Corporation would last as long as the world or the galaxy exists, because it's possible, but individuals are not like that. So therefore, the corporations have enormous power. Then, to great like the nature and the structure of the pre-series would be real or imagined or developed based on a real entity. So any it could be anything. We can directly take a real case, a real company, real information, real whatever, or artificial one. Examine, imagine, and think. That is imagination. But the second option is a little bit difficult. To great extent, what we get are the pre-seen are developed based on a real case or slightly modified real situation is given as the pre-seen. Then you would be able to collect some additional information and facts with respect to that particular pre-seen. Even similar stories may be found in the internet. Then the nature of your pre-seen is strategy, business, functional, and operational areas. Mainly when we take an organization in the past, there was a dominant argument from only functional point of view. Then those leaders of functional domains tried to propagate and promote the idea that that particular function is the most important. For example, if I'm in the accounting, I might say the accounting is the most critical in an organization. If I'm in finance, finance is the most. If you're in marketing, marketing guys says different. Production, IT, logistics, likewise, everyone comes out with their own story and boosting themselves, saying that that is more critical. But what is the reality? Reality is not that. Reality is the integration, success of integration, how it works as a team. So therefore, nowadays, the information provided in a pre-scene does not bias, or biasness is there, like that is the industry, maybe due to some weaknesses in the development of the pre-scene, some biasnesses or over emphasis on one particular one or two particular areas can be seen. But the reality is basically tries to discuss about several aspects, several strategies, interconnectedness, relationships. So simply speaking, these integration of information within an entity can be seen. That's the idea. So that is why we face some difficulty of separating. Sometimes you may have to separate information, but at the same time, you need to link them. It's a paradox. How do you do this thing? So we will see how to balance this situation. It will not be that much difficult if you understand the nature. What is the nature then? Of course, it is interconnected, interdependent, and the in different areas, strategic, business, functional operations, and different activities across it's all the operations. Even though these separate identities can be found, they function and operate in a network or an integrated manner. That's the idea. Some symptoms appear as causes. In the pre-scene, some information or some explanations may appear as that is the big issue, but they are not the issues. Most probably would be the symptoms. For example, so continuous decline in profits, is not the issue. It is the symptom somewhere. In Sri Lanka nowadays, everyone talks about uh, uh, government or the economic issues and economic problems, whereas we say that the government faces a huge problem of like the managing its foreign reserves and honoring its debt servicing. So that is not the real issue actually. It is a symptom of some policies that which have been adopted in the past. So the symptoms of actions taken or utilization of those funds borrowed in the past, they are the real issues. But if you think that this is the issue, of course, you would not be able to develop good answers based on the unseen. So that's a very core question. To great extent, pre-seen reveal some symptoms. They may appear as causes, but they are not causes. But sometimes some issues and causes may be highlighted or stated, or you may find some avenues of identifying causes easily. It's all right. It's all right. Because the praising is not something that we are trying to put you into trouble, right? Sometimes candidates may think that no case has been designed in such a manner of just complications and putting us in trouble. No, it's not. So that is the practical or real way of doing businesses. Real way of doing businesses. It is not that easy to identify the significance of those issues, problems. So they are there. Even if you can take the recent COVID, the post-COVID situation, or now still the COVID situation. So how best organization can come out with some sustainable plans and actions? So to great extent questionable. Mm. But so it is pretty clear that you need to have some solution, whereas it is very clear that the technology can play a better role. But still we do not see whether the technology is either used by a private sector or public sector up to a great extent to manage the economic activities. Even if you just take a decision to restrict mobilization or travel restrictions, the meantime, the government also takes a decision to transport vegetables and other producers to wholesale centers without having a mechanism of distribution. What happened? It would be real chaotic. And so likewise, you have to think of. The other thing in the pre-scene is little or more information provided. A pre-scene does not mean that all the relevant information, all comprehensive information and related information are provided. No, it's not. Sometimes detailed information may be provided, adequate information may be provided. Sometimes very little information may be provided where you have to think of, based on that particular little information, developed by yourself, interpret them by yourself, collect more facts from the outside and support this thing. So likewise, there is no hard and fast rule that it should be the way. This is the, it's up to the examiners. They would decide the extent to which information is provided. Right. The nature and the structure of the pre-scene, as I just told you, now we are synthesizing, we are skewing, or we are summarizing our area up to now. So I just explained you the broad aspects. So here, synthesizing, now we narrow it down. How? Into 4 baskets. Advanced business reporting. This is the area where reporting matters. So mind that to understand the facts given in the pre-scene, it is really paramount important for you to have an adequate knowledge about these subject specific facts. Otherwise, extremely difficult to tackle the questions in the answer. Therefore, it is presumed that you have adequate knowledge in all those 4 areas. Is how to say, beauty of these strategic level question papers are in one question paper, it tries to achieve two objectives. It tries to achieve two objectives. What are they? Basically, when you are given a question paper, we'll take advanced business reporting. At the time of examination, we are measuring your ability, your competencies about business reporting, advanced business. That's it. That is section one. But when it comes to section two, it's a little bit just hybrid nature. Then where we do not assume, we are not testing your advanced business reporting knowledge. That is the thing you have to understand. In the first section, of course, you can come out with, you can show off, you can decorate or develop your answers in such a manner to show your competencies in specific subject knowledge. But when you come to the section two, you need not to show your subject specific knowledge. Why? Examiners assume that you have it already, right? Therefore, your answer should be problem solving, critical analysis, thinking, rational, justification, where you have to use that knowledge. That is the complication. If you do not have a very good understanding of linking these two, what would happen even in the section two, when you link pre-seen to unseen, you may try to show off the examiner about your knowledge about something. No, it doesn't have any bearings. I hope it's clear. Right. I'll just quickly touch the importance of this advanced business reporting, why it is so important. Then you can think of more about pre-seen and unseen. As I just told you, limited liability company, when it grows bigger and bigger, it creates lots of problems. What are the problems? Number one problem is there would be so many owners, shareholders. They are different from managers. They are distinct from managers. They are kept away from managers. Businesses are managed by so-called experts, managers. Then the agency is created. There is no assurance that the managers would run the business in the best interest of so-called investors or shareholders. That is one issue. The other issue is when business activities or businesses are conducted by managers in large corporations, either we like it or not, one of the major objectives of a corporation is to maximize, but maximization is a vague term to me. So because there is no limit, but rather you try to maximize profit or the financial performance. In the race of maximizing financial performance or the profits, there is a tendency, possibility that managers and other stakeholders may try to take destructive decisions, simply disregarding the interest of general public, environment, society, and try to maximize the interest of the few. So that danger is also there. So by understanding these risks factors, actually professionals have developed, okay, of course you can't eliminate everything to 100%, but better have a good governance mechanism, better way of doing things. So how do you do these things? Then apart from other mechanism, control tools, other apparatus that we can use in conducting business operations, one of the tools that from professional point of view that can be used is the reporting. So reporting has to be done in accordance with the professional standards, guideline, and should be certified by external auditors. Operation should have been really monitored by directors reports. Likewise, you have to think of, I'm not going to teach this, like you need to think this the scope of that particular subject. So that is the knowledge you need to collect and keep it in advance in that area. Second part of the cage or the quadrant, the information you need to corporate finance and risk management. Of course, like other functional areas, corporate finance also matters. Why? You have learned this thing. The capital structure, the leverage can do some changes to the performance apart from other things. For example, you have a business, you have machines, equipment, and all these things. Experts are there. Very good management system is also there. Therefore, you can efficiently use your assets and conduct the business. That is one aspect. Meantime, you can alter, change your corporate finance structure to some extent. Cash flow management, financing management, and all those things can alter return on equity to some extent apart from the return on asset utilization efficiency and other abilities of earning profits within that industry. Because of that reason, the strategic level has paid more attention on corporate finance. Then you need to know about those things. Your competencies about corporate finance matters here. Again, no matter whether it is corporate finance, the risk management is applicable everywhere, but in your courses, risk management has been really coupled and incorporated into corporate finance. So you need to know the importance, significance of risk, identification of risk, and how they are managed in a way, mitigate, bringing solutions. So these areas are discussed here. Then corporate taxation. Um, like corporation is a legal person, therefore legal person has to pay tax. So that is the income revenue for the government. But when a corporation becomes larger and larger, when it keeps on growing, um, the implications and the complications related to taxation would increase. As a result, sometimes some frauds also might take place, some tax evasions, or even not compliance with the tax requirements. So there would be two situations. One is purposefully dealing with taxation just to evade taxation, or sometimes without a poor knowledge and all those things, or organization and entities may not engage in uh, uh, required compliances. So as a result, corporations may not manage taxation. But the taxation in a way is again, on one hand, it is must you have to pay it, but on the other hand, it is a kind of leverage. Mm. So higher the taxation, disposable income really goes down, but lower the taxation, it would increase. But again, there are some other concerns as well. So therefore, you need to think of these possibilities of tax planning, tax management, its consequences, and those are the areas that you need to master. Finally, strategic management and leaderships, it is really from a very, very broader perspective. When it comes to these three areas, they are very specific areas, but when it comes to strategic management, it covers all those three plus some other things as well. That is the beauty. So because strategic management covers everything. It's a big umbrella. It takes into account these three aspects plus other aspects that you have learned in prior stages. So that is why I just told you pedagogical thinking in pre-scene, there may be a little like a deviation from the subject specific things specified in the courses given. It may extend to other courses as well. So therefore you need to be very aware of this. And the leadership also is a part and parcel of strategic management. That is why leadership is also discussed. I hope the idea is clear. Now, we will move on to unseen. Unseen. Right. Technically, unseen should deal with additional clarification about the facts and information given in the common phrasing. That is the ideal situation. But mind that some deviations may be there. Additional clarification or new facts also may be there, but little deviation also may be there. That technically speaking, it is an additional clarification about the facts given, or an extension to the facts given. Additional clarification is there, but still that relates to given information. Second one is extension. New information come, but still that the connection is there, connection to pre-seen. Then unseen look at or focus on mainly managerial perspectives, managerial concern. So how managers think about these things. Um, uh, uh, Mainly speaking, in simple terms, managerial perspectives about given facts in the pre-scene and symptoms, or sometimes some issues identified which are highlighted in the unseen. So likewise, so managerial perspectives can be seen. Then in the unseen, alternative courses of actions are also like um, the how to say influence for candidates to think of alternative courses of actions would be there, or otherwise some suggestions may come out. You may see some confrontation between some managers. Some might say this, the other fellow might say different, right? So it's pretty clear in an organization, because even though handful of people take decision within management team, board of directors, it doesn't mean that always so they follow the same rule, guidelines, and within a box or framework. That is the human nature, organizational behavior due to some or other reason. So different opinions are there. So which one would be good? We do not know. Everyone holds their own ideologies and justification, because as long as they think that, so their own justification and their argument is right, yes, this is that. Until it's proven otherwise, or better course of actions are shown. So therefore, in the unseen, you need to think of the possibility of having some information pertaining to alternative actions, alternative courses, alternative decisions. That's very important. Where your attempt would be to choose one, or among the alternatives already they may have decided one. You may be asked to comment about its appropriateness and its relevance. Right? Then unseen sometimes come with new ideas from the management, board of directors to address the issues. New ideas also may come. For instance, all of a sudden, maybe a board of director got a kind of exposure from a foreign company, or got an invitation from foreign investor, or maybe due to contacts with the government or any other links, uh, he or she thought of new business ideas. So that's very alien to the existing practices or the operations that the company has been carrying out over time. But all of a sudden, maybe at a management meeting or board meeting or any other discussion forum, so he or she, or maybe a group, throw this idea, new idea would come. These things are also seen in sometimes in the unseen, because it's very practical. This is how things happen. This is how thing happens. Then in the unseen, you would get facts information not alienated, but rather directly or indirectly connected to the pre-seen. So the information just provided in the bullet point prior to this one may be alienated to some extent, but by and large, when you take the entire case or the information provided in the unseen, it shouldn't be totally unrelated or alienated to the facts given in your pre-seen. due to some other reason, practical reason, like that examination papers, information, all those things are developed by humans, human errors, mistakes, and all those things may be there. As a result, some deviation can be seen. But it does not mean that that is the ideal situation. But to great extent, a professional institution like CA Sri Lanka takes all the measures and follows the protocols of examinations to make sure that the information and unseen and other examination papers are prepared in such a manner to comply with these benchmarks. Therefore, don't worry up to about error. That's why I summarized that part as finally you can conclude about the nature of unseen is something that, as I just explained up to now, in a way directly or indirectly connected to the present, and it can't be totally alienated information. Focus areas already I explain a bit, but within these 4 strategic areas, sub themes are like this. But even for example, only you can think of more sub themes. In terms of strategies, mainly focus should be given on corporate strategies, of course, which business strategies and operational strategies. So they are the subcategories of strategies. Strategic management, and there are some other areas, leadership styles and organizational behavior, so many things. But no matter how other things are connected, as I just told you, they are connected in an integrated approach, but you may see the common thread among these strategies. Strategic management decision, whether they are related to corporate strategies, business strategies, or operational level strategies. This is how strategic management scope uh, um, is discussed for learning purposes. Then the reporting, I just explain you the need of reporting, significance of reporting, and the possible extent to which the reporting can be tested. So, but more specifically, uh, in your pre-seen and unseen areas would be related to, because the reporting, quality of reporting can be improved by taking several different measures. Among them, uh, accounting standards, IFRSs, so here SLFRSs rather. Sorry, I just put the word IFRSs, no matter, because we use these terms interchangeably. So this is Sri Lanka Financial Reporting Standards. There are some critical issues, debatable areas, or areas where we need to pay more attention, can be tested. Especially we know that sometimes some provisions given in the application of SLF judgment is also needed. Then you need to think of these aspects. Of course, SLFRSs are now uh, just based on robust principles and to enhance the quality of reporting. They are they have to deal with two aspects. On one hand, you need to improve the relevance and whereby promoting the fair value. But on the other hand, whenever you try to do this thing, you have to compromise with the objectivity by allowing judgment and subjectivity to some extent. So it's the task of, it's a challenge for managers to strike a balance between the subjectivity and objectivity. So nevertheless, standards have been prepared in such a manner where your judgment requires. Judgment does not mean that imagination. It's a professional judgment based on facts. Um, you need to learn, especially when it comes to some or like IFRS or Sri Lanka Accounting Standard, I mean, SLFRSs, which require judgment. Financial, especially you can refer to financial SLFRSs on financial instruments, because when the market volatility increases and other risk factors really surge around you, lots of things can happen. Even the value reported might give you totally distorted picture or information about the entity. It would be dangerous. That's what you would be very careful in the reporting, and the learning is important in reporting. Then the contemporary issues, then and there, contemporary issues may arise within these reporting, sometimes leasing, special arrangement for banks, and again when Sri Lanka choose to adopt IFRSs, lots of concerns were there with respect to this compulsory adoption, led to issues and discussion about small and medium scale enterprises, where to great extent in Sri Lankan context GDP is contributed by those organizations, but it would be a bit difficult for those entities to fully adopt IFRSs in the Sri Lankan version of SLFRSs. So therefore, contemporary issue was taken as how best we go for a kind of reporting system which is suitable for SMEs. Then we have a separate version of SLFRSs for small and medium. So that is another reporting area, some cases. Finally, reporting deals, or what matters is the quality of information, no matter what is said and done. Right? What is given in different formats, conceptual framework, standard, as long as you follow them, you have very good knowledge about these things, so you are good at reporting. But finally, the base, the rule, final rule of judgment is quality of information. That cannot be compromised. Then corporate finance and risk, you need to be thorough on the significance of finance and sources of financing, possibilities of going for financial leverage, cost of capital, financial evaluation, and risk management are the key areas. Corporate taxation already explain you, current issues, recent changes, tax planning versus tax evasion, implication on business operations, and the government policy changes also will have to be taken into account. So if government changes tax policies very often, so how are we going to deal with these things? So that can be addressed in this kind of case, unseen and preseen. Now we are moving towards the the latter part of analysis. So still we were dealing with the preparedness, in a way background, and how we understand both preseen and unseen. Right? No matter how best we have understood, how best we have interpreted them, how best we have arrange our tools, our ammunition to fight. What matters at the end of the day, whether we would deliver more relevant, appropriate answers. Then to do that, you need to have good strategies for analyzing the preseen. So before going to unseen, you have 1 month time period to analyze. In what way? Number one is, as I just told you, reading. You can start reading by skimming first. The first reading is the skimming, just read it, non-stop reading without thinking much. Then detailed reading, reading with highlighting, deep reading with making additional notes, reading with some additional interpretation. So whereby you can develop something called mind mapping. I think you may have heard about mind mapping. You plot the information given in the preseen into these 4 basket linkages. Then you can have 4 sets of areas where you can highlight individual subcomponents, themes, ideas, aspect. Likewise, There are some computer softwares as well to do the mind mapping. um, Use them. If you're not familiar with them, you better have a manual one, whatever it is. So please arrange them in a methodological way. Sometimes you can have additional reference book or reference guide to pick the information, because this is an open book examination. So therefore you would be able to use the preset information. But mind that there is a danger if you do not have a proper referencing index, what we call good index, to refer to particular pages, areas, facts, theories, you are out, because the time would be wasted in an examination time with the tension. Then and there you can't find information, even though you have read it 100 times, you have by hearted the case. So you would struggle to link to the point that is required to answer the question if you do not have a good reference. Better to have a good referencing page. Then the use of cognitive domains to understand the given facts and information. So this is where the cognitive domains are important and relevant. So refer back to the cognitive domains I explained earlier. Then if I just summarize among these cognitive domains, two things matter. One is the mainly when you develop and produce an answer, your logical reasoning, flow of argument really matters. So that's number one. And how best you effectively communicate your idea. Sometimes you have the logical arrangement, logical argument, but you would fail in communicate it to the examiner in the form of answer effectively. So there are other aspects as well. You can look at all these cognitive domains later on, but mainly if you are good at these or managing these two domains, you are through for sure. I'm telling you from experience. The categorization and separation already just link. I told you it's a challenging task. So you can link it to a mind mapping. You need to categorize, you need to separate by paying attention at the same time about the interrelationship and integration. And then you need to connect and like show the interdependencies. For all those purposes, of course, mind mapping can be used. And use of analytical tools. What are the analytical tools I refer here? Actually, again, there is no theory or there is no handbook, and there is no specific analytical tools that you must. No one can say that you must use this tool. No. But in most subject areas, in marketing, finance, especially in strategic management, different tools have been developed by scholars, practitioners from time to time based on different scenarios. Among them, there are popular ones, unpopular ones, more relevant ones. For example, no matter whether relevance can like relevance is up to that level or this level. When we talk about strategic management, um, Michael Porter's 5 forces model is discussed. It's a very popular one, but you can question its relevance to some. Balanced scorecard analysis, BCG metrics, hands of metrics about market, likewise. Um, Pestle model to understand a particular. Also, on one hand, they are used, you need to use, but you've got to be very, very careful that they are not only the tools. Even SWOT, very common. The idea here is, because in the real life, actually you can come out with your own analytical tool, as long as they are arranged with facts, information in a logical manner, the justification. That's all right. That's what we want. But in an examination, it would be a little bit difficult unless you are prepared, because you have a very limited time. That is the reason why it would be advisable for you to use some analytical tools in advance. Sometimes that would be useful, sometimes may not be useful. Don't do this. Like, for example, if you use all the analytical tools that you know, and all these analytical tools are applicable to the Preseen, then you have a nice analysis in different ways. Fantastic. Maybe 20 pages analysis. So you have covered all important known tools, used tools, and so you see the answers as well. So if I use this, but in the examination, you do not have any room of using this. Sometimes only you can use one. If you can use only one tool, then use it and don't use. And if there is no room of using this analytical tool in your answer, don't use it. No matter whether you have wasted your time. Because if you try to produce something in your pre-scene, answering to questions which is irrelevant, don't be out. So that danger is there. You may try to reproduce what you have. Don't do it. But again, analytical tools are facilitating you. It does not mean that you have to refer to that particular analytical tool unless that is asked. Some question may specifically ask, okay, just give your answer based on this particular tool, this model. Then you need to refer according to that particular the five forces model, Porter's five forces model. Then of course you need to refer to that one. But if the question is, okay, what's your judgment, your analysis about competitive position of this particular company? It means, it does not mean that you need to use Michael Porter's five forces model. No, you think of your own way or different analysis or even your own interpretation by taking into account the knowledge and competencies that you have. It's all right. I hope the message is clear. Again, if I summarize it, use analytical tools and be prepared. But at the time of examination, none of these tools may be relevant. Just forget about it. Don't try to reproduce. And if it is used, only use analytical tools, but at the examination time, you can use the outcome of the analysis in a way that you want. If the freedom is there, that means question, there are no, the questions asked by referring to a particular tool, then you use on your own. But the question is, or question refers to a particular tool, of course you need to do it. I'll refer to when it comes. Then how do you link the pre-seen to unseen? Number one is you need to avoid the possibility of emergence of fuzzy logics. What is fuzzy logics? Fuzzy logics is the deterministic decision-making model based on preloaded, pre-set logics. It has a set of logics only. When you read unseen, so pre-seen, when you use tools, when you use your competencies and knowledge, these are the logics that you have. Therefore, those logics go into your mind. Information is stored by referring to those logics, and at the time of examination, when the unseen comes, without seeing what is asked in the unseen, once you read one particular word about strategic management, automatically the preloaded stored logic comes out from the mind. That is so dangerous. Not only it is like sometimes it's deceiving. Even at the examination, at the end of the examination, I have experienced many students have claimed that, sir, I have just written the answers very nicely and referred to everything, all the tools that and this. That when the result comes, so they may claim, oh no, I don't have good result. That means the fuzzy logics may have better avoid of implementing or happening of fuzzy logics. The danger of predetermined answers. So there is a tendency among students, when you have pre-seen, you consult lecturers, tuition masters, your knowledge, you collect information as much as possible from the net and textbooks, and even so therefore you judge the unseen and you set predetermined answers. It's really dangerous. Don't do that. Better not to prepare, but better have predetermined tools and ways of looking at the issue. This is the way I can look at. These are the alternatives that I have. Better not to go to examination with set standard answers. Why? I'm telling, because if you go to the examination, since this is predetermined, like open book with a predetermined, a prepared answer, either you like it or not, your deeper mind asks you to write it down. You write it down. Then at the time of examination, you need to have independent perception about the unseen. You read the unseen independently from the preseen. Independently. Don't think of the facts given in the preseen. So at the time of examination, so these things like really matter at the time of examination. Glance in the question given before reading the facts in the unseen. What's it? Like, you know that when you are given a question like it's like this. Normally, the standard structure of a question is at the end of the body text, required section is there. Under the required section, questions are asked. Therefore, our conservative pattern of reading is you first read the body text, then you reach to the questions asked in action verbs. So you better go through the action verbs as well. Action verbs highlighted in the CS Sri Lanka syllabus, the curriculum. Because each action verbs tells you what is specifically asked. Your task is to produce that, not else, nothing else. So then why I am asking you to read the questions that is given at the latter part of the questions first before reading the body text. It has a psychological advantage. If you read the body text first and read the questions or what you are supposed to do last, then you forget what you have read. So you remember little, but not all. Then again, you need to read it and refer back to the body text once you read the questions at the end. It takes time. You're fighting with time. But if you have read the questions first, then once you read the body text, you can easily filter the things. What's needed for the questions asked, what is not directly linked to it, what is not important. So you can filter. Actually, it helps you to have a very good filtering process. Then you need to provide answers in the unseen only to the questions asked, not all that you know. I'll explain with a real example of last examination. What are you supposed to do? Then your response, therefore, in the process of answering to what is asked, there would be two things. One is required answer, required outcome to match what was asked in the question. The other thing is the provision, like uh, the giving facts in responding to the question asked based on what you know. That's the thing. Don't show, don't provide, or don't include unnecessary things that you know if it is not asked. Why I emphasize, I repeat this. You may wonder in this session, I emphasize, actually, I repeat this several times. Why? From my experience of marking answer scripts, I have seen that candidates try to come out and showcase that they know the facts, knowledge. Our learning outcome in this section 2 is not to test to your knowledge, subject specific knowledge, but to use your ability to answer given case, given situation, given problem based on the knowledge that you have already known. Therefore, it is up to you. Therefore, don't try to show us that you know so many theories, so many tools. No, no matter. Okay, so it's a key and very critical. Finally, what matters in developing the answer is, as I always just explained, logical reasoning and flow of arguments. That really captures marks. Even some answer may not have been within the orthodox pattern of thinking. You know that in strategic management or in standard subjects, so for strategic level subject that you learn, there are orthodox answers, orthodox ways of tackling issues. There are, so that's what most of these models discuss. But even if you come out with unorthodox and new argument, examiners would accommodate them as long as you have provided adequate reasoning and justification. Therefore, simply speaking, what carries marks are justification, reasoning, analysis, arguments, and not anything else. I hope the message is clear. Now, within the time, the limitation, like we'll see there are 4 subjects. I just try to discuss all 4. How do you tackle now in real situation? This is the uh, examination paper on advanced, sorry, spelling mistake is there, advanced corporate reporting. The required, this is the question that you are supposed to read first. I'm not going to read all the text given in unseen. I'm just trying to help you facilitate first. So to align you how you can link your pre-seen to unseen. In the starting point is reading the questions. In this paper, this part carries 50 marks altogether. Part A, B, C, D, E. Part A, assuming that the date of acquisition of the additional 45% holding in HCD, that is a particular company given in the pre-scene, is 31st March 2020. So you are supposed to make an assumption. Then you have to do this. The action verb used by the examiner is the prepare. You need to prepare, nothing else. What? Prepare the consolidated statement of financial position. So in a way here, you need not to apply any judgments, any interpretation, any discussion. No. Application of the knowledge to prepare. Application is there. So in a way, this action verb tells you your scope of operation. Therefore, do that only. Consolidated statement of financial position of this as at this date, incorporating the result of above acquisition together with the detailed calculation required. Right? So, 2 things are there. Preparation of consolidated statement of financial position. Therefore, either by hook or crook, if you provide it, okay, this is the consolidated financial statement, you are through. But examiners are a bit careful and vigilant, and they have a guard. What is the guard? They ask you to provide detailed calculation, right? That's the guard, right? Otherwise, sometimes when we put numbers here and there, even you may copy or maybe predetermined answer may work based on your assumption and all those things. So, but here additional information in the pre-scene, you can practice. So this tells you that you need to be aware. Your knowledge on preparation of consolidated financial statements is important. You may have prepared consolidated financial statement by taking different percentage, but here the additional information gives you only this information, date and the acquisition. You got it? So then that would be easy. But it does not mean that you can reproduce what you have prepared. You can't. But you have to use the knowledge that we have, basic principles. Here, key is you need to make sure that you prepare a complete set of um, not set of financial statement, but only statement of financial position. It should be complete one. Very basic things. So where you need to pay more attention about goodwill adjustment and intercompany transactions. So those are the things. Others are not that important because it means so simple. Adding aggregation line by line. Right? That's it. But caution is there, detailed calculation. You have to provide the calculation about goodwill, calculation about the splitting of reserves here and there, calculation about the cancellation of intercompany transactions. Then, so they almost 90% is done. Then part B, advice. Just see, the action verb is totally different. When you give an advice, you have the freedom of interpreting because you are the king there. Because advice cannot be given someone who doesn't have adequate knowledge. Therefore, you are supposed to have that knowledge. Advise the management on the appropriateness of using um, going, going concern assumption in preparing the financial statement for the year ended 31st March. See, in terms of subject specific knowledge, it goes to very primary level, basic level of preparation of financial statement. That is what you learn in the conceptual framework, the going concern assumption. But here question does not ask. You are not supposed to tell what is going concern. If you write these kind of things, no marks. You need not to say what is meant by going concern. And you need to advise appropriateness. It's um, actually implications, usefulness of preparation of financial statements in that, where you can think of the importance of classification of assets and liabilities into current and non-current, why they are done so, and what kind of information can be generated from each type. Because when we take the uh, financial statements, what you see in the statement of financial position is nothing but, simply speaking, from managerial point of view, assets and liabilities. That's all. And the detailed breakup of how assets, net assets, have changed during the particular period is given in the statement of comprehensive income. That's it, right? Based on accrual basis. How this particular change happened in terms of cash flows is given in the statement of cash flow. That's it. So here, um, you need not to prepare or provide any financial statements, but only an advice. To who? Managers. What do? So then it is good if you can have an idea about why do managers need information? Or why do you think that managers are supposed to know about this going concern and the appropriateness of going concern? To great extent, managers are the people who take decision, manage the business. Therefore, your advice should help them take decision. That's it. That is a scope, right? When you talk about the usefulness, appropriateness, importance of the going concern, from decision making perspective, if you use it this way, you can take, for example, how best managers can take decisions to manage pertaining to liquidity positions of the company by looking at current assets and current liabilities and the long-term planning, capital budgeting decisions. So that is the area of focus depending on information uh, given in the case. So I hope, like, so this is the way of developing answers. I hope we can go until 3 o'clock. Yes. Then the other question, again, one thing I forgot, you need to pay attention on the marks allocated. Just look at, I forgot to mention that one. But first one, 22 marks. To great extent, mechanical, mechanistic work, you can do it. But the second one, even though the advice is so important from managerial point of, you can think from different perspective, it carries only 3 marks. So therefore, be short and sweet. Just give a very short answer. Don't write too much. Lengthy jargons, no point. Explain 5 COSO components of internal controls. So you see, so some ease of dealing with unseen with this kind of um, the questions. Even without referring to the information given in pre-seen and unseen, you can directly answer this question. So likewise, you may have some leverages, some advantages. That is why I ask you to be independent reading and better be independent from what you read in the pre-seen. In order to answer to question number C, you need not to read anything in unseen or pre-seen. But if you have the knowledge about COSO, so COSO knowledge should be there. You know, it is the basic component pertaining to internal control, significance, and importance of. Quickly write down. So 5 marks. So maybe in the bullet points. That's it. But if you do not know, just see. If you do not know the components of COSO, or if you have read pre-seen and unseen very well, then you can't answer. But even if you do not know COSO components, but you have a very good reference with your hand, and easily you can refer to it and write down. Simply tracing, but only 5 marks. Now it tells you that the answering to this pre-seen based on unseen based on pre-seen does not always ask you to come out with comprehensive and analytical interpretative answers. It's a variation, combination of everything to bring about and test whether you have reached the learning outcome. That's part D. Identify. So in part C, explain. So you can't simply name it. You need to explain what is meant by that component. Huh? It is not simple copying and pasting. But the D, identify 5 deficiencies in the current internal control system of HCL and propose actions that HCL could undertake to remove such deficiencies. Just see, first you need to send signal to your mind. Okay, you are supposed to first identify deficiencies, not more than 5, because only 5 marks may have been allocated for that, and propose answers, action to eliminate this or deal with these deficiencies. That's it. Identification and action, issue and action, application, but at a in a way moderately lower level situation. One is, but here you can't answer to this question without reading and linking your pre-seen to unseen. Unseen may not have, in this case, given additional information, of course, because deficiencies are already there in the pre-seen. If you have read, unless you have read the case well and identified these symptoms and problems, now you have to struggle. That is why you need to use all those tools and identify not only the symptoms, but also the real issues. Carries marks. Then evaluate the possible misstatement using ratio analysis based on the above information. Just see again, you are brought back to technical analysis, so ratio analysis. So there are different aspects to be discussed under ratio analysis. You should know them. Then you evaluate. You know that you can evaluate the profitability, leverage, asset utilization, efficiency, and short-term liquidity, that and this even market based ratios. So likewise, think of this area sometimes. So like, since the information has been given in the pre-seen, you can, so in case some numbers, financial statements, or any other figures have been given, always better to analyze. How do you analyze? Calculate ratios, identify the relationships, interpret them, tools, some even evaluation, financial evaluation, cash flow management. So likewise, you can go ahead with any kind of things. So had you done them, here you are asked ratios. Then you can quickly reproduce that thing, but with your explanation. Now, yes, we have more 15 minutes. We can look at other question papers as well. I'll show you these papers and discuss. Now, I'm sharing the screen now. Right. First, this is the one already I discussed. Financial reporting one. Second one, this comes, this is the paper, discuss the limitation of financial. So this is the financial management or corporate finance and risk management. What are the questions asked? First, discuss the limitations of the market-based valuation technique in response to the chairman's request, and recommend a market-based valuation range for HCL with the information available. Just see before linking, because like better not to be hurry up to jump, like in other way, don't jump to conclusions or link pre-seen to unseen until and unless you understand what are you asked really in the questions. So discuss, remember the action, discussion. Discussion means it is giving facts this way, that way, and something like. It's not really explaining one idea. When you are to discuss about something, you need to provide facts for and against. Sometimes you can come out with some conclusion, your opinion as well, but it's a discussion. Discussion takes into account facts, both like arguments for and against. Then limitation of the market-based valuation techniques. Now you need to know what the market-based valuation techniques are in response to the chairman's request. So that's given, right? What the chairman has asked, the unseen. Then it's different from the market-based valuation. It may have gone to other valuation. Then you need to explain here to answer to that particular part, discussion part. Of course, you can use the theoretical knowledge, but the theoretical knowledge is simply linked to the chairman's request. Even if it is request, it is again theory, subject specific knowledge. To answer to that, again, you can freely answer without referring to the facts given in the case. The facts given in the case helps you to identify only the chairman's request. That is different from the market-based valuation. You have to contrast and compare. So likewise, because we know that any model, any way of answering to corporate issues will have both pros and cons. It's a fact. There are no goals, and this is the answer. If that's the case, everyone would do much better without having any difficulties. We know the real life situation is highly volatile and contingent. We need to face these risk exposures and manage the things. So therefore, these two model, like evaluation model and the chairman request, you need to show both pros and cons. But of course, you know that which one is superior, more relevant in what terms, in terms of decision making, running businesses in a successful manner. So therefore, we have our conclusion favorism. Oh, okay, this is the one which has the highest advantage, highest or the highest number of merits over demerits. Therefore, you have to recommend. So therefore, recommend a market-based valuation range for HLC within the future. Actually, here um, it's not difficult for you if the examiner asks you to recommend which method to be followed. Then you need to have your own interpretation about the merits of each method, and you need to take a decision. It's difficult, but this question is not that difficult. Why? You have been asked. Your recommendation should be given based on valuation range, market base. Therefore, you need to provide a justification. Therefore, you need to highlight about the merits in the recommendation. When you provide the recommendation for something, right, even that particular something has some weaknesses, better not to highlight, better not to write, because your task is to recommend. If you recommend something to someone, you should not say anything bad. Suppose that you are going to recommend a particular vehicle, so you recommend it's a new circuit system, how best it deals with technology, automation, running cost, and all these things. But there may be some defects in terms of something. But you're not supposed to, because you say all these merits. At the end, they say you say also these are the defects you got to be no. In the recommendation, no. But in the discussion, yes. Okay. But again, additional note is also given. You have already communicated to HCL board of directors that you would use PE and market-based valuation, PE ratio, um, earnings valuation, and EBITDA multiple based valuation for this particular. So therefore, here again, you see, you need not to discuss other openly available market-based valuation techniques, but so you need to refer to only P ratio, earning valuation, and EBITDA. That's it. Only two. With reference to point number 2 raised by the chairman, um, evaluate again as to whether the profit-based decision making would be misleading. So then when it is an evaluation, of course, you need to conclude whether it is misleading or not. That is the answer. If you do not say, yes, it would be misleading, it would not, may not be misleading sometimes to that text in that, no. In the analysis part, you can take this. Finally, you need to say, yes, based on the given information and my analysis, yes, it would be misleading, or it would not be misleading, likewise. Evaluate the performance of strategic business unit based on 4 key parameters, and suggest. So parameters need to be taken into account, and suggest 4 possible strategies. So it's clear. In the evaluation, then you can talk about both pros and cons, but when you suggest, only merits, not demerits. So quickly look at the other question as the question as well. See, display. It's a display. So display has to be materialized in terms of words. Display your independent opinion on point number 2 and 3 raised by chairman on differentiated cost of equity and whether HCL company evaluation would come down in the event once or more SBUs are shut down. Just see, so your evaluation has to be done based on cost of equity, right? So you need to explain, that is the display. Display, other word, explain your independent opinion, saying that this is how and why it can be differentiated from the other thing. So that is the point. D, as the main shareholder of this thing. So now your role is different. HCL is interested in share purchase proposal despite the negative sentiments made by the management accountant. Then advise. Just see, advise. In advising, again, you need to explain both pros and cons. With both pros and cons, what is the best course of action? Otherwise, it is not going to be an advice. Actually, advice and recommendation go in hand to some extent. So this is how the corporate finance paper. I'll quickly have a look on in 5-10 minutes the other two papers as well. Assess the balance. When it comes to the taxation, situation would be a little bit different, and your scope is limited. You need not to go for unnecessary imagination, but you have to provide your answers within the given legal framework, that is the Inland Revenue Act, the provisions and additional facts arising in unseen. Assess the balance income tax payable. How do you do this thing? In the pre-scene, you can do, or you could have tempted assessing the tax liability based on the given information. In pre-scene, what you can do now, you need not to do original calculation again. You can make slight adjustments to the calculation that we have done already, which may require as a result of new information provided in the unseen. That is how you have to do. That is the most easiest way and the time-saving manner. But if you cannot do this thing, of course, you need to redo the calculation by taking into account new information. But anyway, it is very straightforward. You need to be aware of the tax rules. The second part is advise the senior management on the possible tax implication or tax benefits under the provisions of the. So just see, this deals with sometimes tax planning, and you may suggest something, some post like dealing with expenses, deferment of expenses, maybe acquisition of assets, and different things in order to manage your tax. It's tax planning and tax management. No matter whether the owner accept your answer or no advice, so that's the way of providing. Discuss whether the opinions given below by the assistant commissioner are correct, referring to the provisions of the Inland Revenue. So here again, how can you answer? Actually, you need to be much aware of the provisions given in these sections, otherwise you can't discuss answer to this. So but the answer is a discussion. So since that is a discussion, of course you have to highlight the points given by the assistant commissioner and the knowledge that you have, but you like in a way final argument here in this particular discussion is not to win over the assistant commissioner, but to comply with the the professionalism and the compliance with the guidelines and the provisions given in the act. Sometimes the assistant commissioner may have interpreted wrongly to some extent. That is where you need to discuss. If he or she has interpreted correctly, but with minor deviation, you need to do some modification. That is your discussion is important. Your discussion in this case with the view to comply with professional and the legal compliance requirements, professional standard and compliance with legal requirements. But it's only 5 marks. And another special thing, employee share ownership, the plan. You hope that you know these things. And where shares are issued to senior executives. One of the executives has sued the company claiming his entitlement to this thing, the litigation, right? Expense incurred by HS was deducted as an allowable expense for tax purposes. Then you need to, so it's a straightforward, what is the provision given on these kind of expenses charge in calculating tax liability, whether it is allowable or not. Your answer should be very distinct, very clear whether it is allowable or not. So finally, quickly, so now you are clear that linking pre-seen to unseen up to these 3 papers are subject specific or like within a limited scope. But when it comes to strategic management paper, it is broader. Sometimes you have a kind of freedom of using general knowledge as well. So look at the question number 1, right? Analyze the culture of HCL using Handy's classification of organizational culture. When it comes to organization culture, how the power of the organization lies, how the culture evolves, and all those things has been analyzed. Even though this is relatively old model, you may have learned this thing. I think it was introduced in 1999, bit old, but this has been recommended in your learning. So even without reading or referring to facts given in the case, sorry, here you can't have independent answer because you are required analyze the culture of HCL. Actually, the first you need to take into account this model, right? The five need not to explain, you need not to define what is this classification. You take that classification, maybe power. So power, how power has been embedded or integrated in different section or different SBUs or individual in HCL can be explained directly. Right? So that is what you are supposed to do. So therefore, just keep in mind that the marks also, the 8 marks, this answer uh, does not limit to the knowledge or linking pre-seen to unseen, but additional knowledge about Handy's classification. If you do not know the Handy's classification, don't think of right, you can't. That is why open book helps you. If you have a very good index, actually you didn't read it, you didn't know, but you know, quickly click it and go to the page and take it. Then you can develop the answer. Select 3 SBUs, strategy business unit of HCL of your choice, and explain the criteria used in establishing such. So again, this is straightforward. It is up to you. There are many of these. Select 3 that you see, I mean, you feel comfortable. Again, your answer, development answer is explanation. Analyze the growth strategies of this thing by using Ansoff metrics. Therefore, you're supposed to know Ansoff metrics, the market, new market, and I mean old market versus product. So that is how market segmentation done. New, old, market, and product. If you do not know, can't. That is why. So these are basically nowadays when it goes to market, Ansoff metrics is also useful. Then you don't have any choice. You need to provide your answer. You need to identify your products and markets within, whether it's just saying whether they are old or new, how they should be placed in new or old, your strategies. So present situation, take into account the present situation. You explain, yes, of course, you need to still anchor in the old market by giving a reason. You should not provide, when you analyze, if you say yes, it should be old and it should be a new market, new product, likewise, you will not get a full marks. You have to provide a reason why you say that it should be in new. Why you, so provide a reason why it should be in old. That is the way. The next one, D question says, suggest most appropriate operation management strategies. Just see, management, operation management strategies. It's not the corporate level. Operation management strategies for HCL in implementing business strategies at the operational level of the organization under the current context. So just see, so while you're reading it, without reading the pre-seen, unseen, and the body text in the unseen, the advantage of reading the questions asked in the required first, automatically it gives you a signal, most appropriate. Okay, so we'll select it later. Of course, in order to choose it, you need to refer to the information given in pre-seen and unseen. But you know the scope. What is the scope? Business strategies and operational. So knowledge about the strategies, corporate strategies, business strategies, operational strategies, this is how the hierarchy is arranged. Don't worry about the corporate level strategies in answering to this question because it's irrelevant. Need not to show that you know corporate level strategies. So pitch and identify the business strategies and what are the strategies to implement all these things or materialize these business strategies at operational levels. There are managerial perspectives, leadership, operationalization, logistic management. So all those things would matter for sure, right? Then discuss human resource practices of HCL and suggest a strategy for better performance. You see, so strategic management can um, go go to any aspect within business operation. Here, examiner wanted to touch HR, human resource management, because human resource management nowadays is not only one particular functional or um, operational area, but also it has become a cross-cutting um, activity and the operation. The importance of human resource development, um, right, like has been heavily discussed, and it is regarded human resource or the development of human capital as one of the key drivers of determining the success. Therefore, you need to take into account uh, new aspect importance of human resource practices, but tendencies you need to take into account. Unlike in the past basically your competencies, skills, individual based, group based skills and competencies were highly highlighted. Nowadays what matters, of course, not only group but also integrated human resource management, the cohabitation, mm, and the collective efforts. Integration matters, um, by taking into account the other aspects like technology as well. The quality of human resource can also be enhanced with technology. To think of this. So this discussion, if you promote and analyze, provide more facts towards the current trends about human development, human resource practices, then the examiner might think that okay, uh, that candidate, he or she is much more conversant with new trends, knowledge, and things of creating value for the corporation. That's what matters for the application of knowledge. And finally, you have to suggest a strategy also, better performance. Then strategy can be linked to a given framework of this teamwork, integration, or you can come out with new model as well, no harm. But what matters, as I just told you nowadays, is the the giving respect to the human and the responsibilities, accountabilities, instead of just maintaining so-called hierarchical level. So somewhere down the level, hierarchical level, like the management may would create lots of problem. Rather, collective and the performance based on your capacity and competencies um, at different levels. Even janitors' work would be very critical in analyzing these strategic decisions, because that work can be performed by the janitor, office support staff, and logistics staff, floor workers. So as same as the same importance of the CEO, finance manager, but different, like the values are there, but the significance of important is the same, but different level, its quality would be different. Then last one, discuss the motive drivers and challenges of HCL in the involvement of international business. So here, motives, then you need to refer to vision, mission, and all those things, drivers and challenges. So then what are the key drivers in this business? Based on their competencies, knowledge, capacity, learning. So this is how drive. So challenges would come as a result of present changes in the business environment locally, political decision, international technology, or these risks. So likewise, you need to take into account. Then that would be that. So think that when we answer to these business, what you call corporate strategic business strategies, you can think about the issue or the questions from a very broader perspective, unless you have been directly just forced or directed to particular area. So for example, in the case of C, analyze the growth strategies by using hands-on. So you don't have much freedom. So that's all. With that, we will conclude. Just if I summarize again, just brief you in a nutshell, how you link the pre-seen to unseen. It is a must that read, the pre-scene or be familiarized with the pre-scene. And prepare your tools in the most appropriate manner that you know by using a reference index and all those things. Yeah. But better not to prepare predetermined answers by imagining what would come in the answer. Then at the time of examination, read the unseen in most independent manner. How you should start reading unseen? Start reading with questions, as I just told you. Then you read the additional text provided in the unseen in an independent manner. Then only you would be effectively link that to the pre-scene. There is no hard and fast rule. It is not compulsory for you to link all the facts given in the pre-scene to the unseen. Link only to the facts which are relevant. Right? In this case, part B, you need to select SBUs, HCL for your choice and explain the criteria used in it. So here, you need not to think of any other SBUs, only 3. But again, you need to explain only criteria used in establishing. So that limit it. Don't go beyond any other criteria. There is no use. I think I know that that is a difficult one, the maintenance of this independence, because the psychological fuzzy logic works and comes and pops up in your mind. Try to manage it. Be professional and rational, and to great extent you can train your mind by using the cognitive domains I explained at the very beginning. Then that would help you. Therefore, finally answer only to the questions asked. Don't try to showcase that you know everything about this thing. You have adequate knowledge. It doesn't matter for the exam. um, and be concerned about the marks allocated, because one of the biggest challenges in answering to the questions given in pre-unseen is the time. Lots of information given, even if it is open book, even reading times is quite like extremely difficult. Therefore, try to provide more straightforward, simple answers in bullet points, um, as um, smallest or maybe concise as possible, rather than providing. And your agility also matters. Be agile, quickly develop. Sometimes you may have to forego something that will not be a big issue. So that's all about this thing. um, if you follow these rules and be prepared, or get ready for the pre-scene, and I hope that it would be really easy for you to, or you would be really comfortable for you to link the pre-scene to unseen and develop your answers. So what I just tried and attempted here was to facilitate you to do that and not to provide any answers. In answering or applications of knowledge in these case type pre-scene information to real life business organization, um, deals with your abilities and competencies um, that you have developed, and not revealing or reproducing predetermined ready-made answers. So that is the difference. If you are good at that, even with difficulties, maybe some weaknesses can be seen in your answers, don't worry. As long as you follow those rules, of course you would be successful. So for the final word is, what matters is not the facts reproduced, but the logics, arguments, and justification. Then of course you would be successful. I wish you all the best. And again, thank you very much for giving this opportunity. Thank you, giving this opportunity for me to address you guys. All the best.